Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jaden Irwin, and today we're going to be going through how to set up a links page. If you don't know what I mean by a links page, you probably have seen in Instagram and Twitter, people have like a link tree link in their bio, or bio.link is another popular one. And they sort of look like this. You have normally a profile image up top, their name, some links to their social media, other social media than where you came from, and then you have normally some links to their latest content, or just they have a post that they posted recently and said check out the link in my bio. So this is a pretty popular thing that you'll see, and what I want to show you today is how you can build this yourself using Sanity. If you don't know what Sanity is, it is basically a headless CMS. They don't really like to call themselves that because they do a lot more, and I agree. I think it is a little bit more powerful than some of the other headless CMSs that I've seen, or a lot more powerful. There's a lot of customization, and we're just going to go through how to set up something like this that's controlled through a CMS. So I already have the repo. I will link it below. I do have the repo already installed on my computer though. So let's go ahead and get it running. You'll see that the structure of this is there's an Astro example, a lit component example, and the Sanity studio. And then that's basically it in the README. The README is pretty detailed. I tried to cover just about every step that we're going to go through today. So feel free to reference that step by step if you'd like to. So we can kind of just go through this line by line, create a repo from the template. I'm not going to do that because I already have the repo. And then the CLI, if you don't have the Sanity CLI already, you will want to run npm install global Sanity CLI. Super useful. There's a lot of commands that you can run to manage your Sanity project from that. And then you will want to open a terminal from the root folder of the project. So if I go back here, we're in the root folder. Let's cd into the Sanity folder, and we're going to run Sanity install. Kind of cheated already and ran it, but that might take a little bit longer for you. And then we're going to run Sanity init. In your case, in my case, I don't need to run the init command because I already have it connected to a Sanity project, but you'll want to run that to create your own Sanity project and connect this studio to that project. And then you will want to run npm run GraphQL deploy and run that. It should be pretty quick for me because I already have deployed this. It might take a little bit longer for you. What this is basically doing is creating GraphQL API for your Sanity project. You can use Grok if you wanted to. Grok is super powerful. I'm just a little bit more familiar with GraphQL myself, so that's what we're going to use here. And the project is actually set up in a way to use Grok pretty easily and swap it out with Grok queries if you wanted to do that. So you will want to take note of the URL that it outputs there, because we are going to want to go to the Astro folder, and then you're going to want to go to the .env.template and copy that file, paste it just to create another one, or you could just rename it if you wanted to. Either works. It's going to be .env. This .env is already in the git ignore, so it should ignore that .env file. If it isn't, I'll make sure I add that on there. There we go. And then you will want to swap out the ID here for the project ID and the URL. Normally you just should have to change the ID for each of those, but you will want to double check that URL matches whatever it outputs for you. So mine's already matching. I don't have to do that, but you will want to take note of that. We'll go back to our README here. That sets up the Astro side, super easy. And then for the lit side, the lit component, so this is a web component using the lit library. Super awesome. If you haven't checked it out yet, I would highly recommend it. Web components are what's looking like the way of the future, so get used to them and try them out. Definitely, if you're coming from React or Vue or something like that, Svelte maybe, then you're probably already pretty familiar with the API. But web components, they're pretty awesome. I don't think they're going to completely replace frameworks or anything like that. Maybe, but I just decided I was going to write a web component instead of do like a Gatsby project or a React component. So feel free to pick this apart. It's pretty much the same code as what you're going to see in Astro, but we'll get to that in a little. What I wanted you to see here is inside the sanity links page.ts file, there's this sanity URL property. And this is actually an external property that you can change whenever you're using the web component. But if you wanted to, you could just go in here and replace this GraphQL URL with your GraphQL URL. If you don't want to change the default, then it's just going to reference back to me and my project. But feel free to change that to your URL. Cool. So that's basically it on the setup. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions in the comments on setting things up. What I did want to take note of here is that you will want to add localhost 3000 to your allowed CORS origins in your Sanity project. What I mean by that is if you go to manage.sanity.io, I also linked that in the README, manage.sanity.io. Go to your Sanity project and then settings for your Sanity project. And you will notice that localhost 3000 I have already added. That's not normally on there by default. So you want to make sure you have localhost 3000 on there. That way you're not getting CORS errors and it's just not requesting anything from Sanity. So you'll make sure you add that or you're just going to run into a bunch of errors. So really important on that. And let's go ahead and run the Sanity Studio so you can see what this looks like. I'm not going to get really into the weeds of how this works necessarily code-wise. That's kind of why I'm making it open source so you can pick it apart if you want to. But I will give kind of an overview of how all of this works. So we're already in the Sanity directory here, Sanity start. And that might take a second to compile the studio and get everything going. And that should be running at localhost 3333. Perfect. We'll go ahead and open that up. It will ask you to authenticate to the same account that created the Sanity project. And what you'll see here is the dashboard. Nothing too crazy here. Let's go to the desk though. This is where kind of all the magic happens on this schema that we set up here. Settings, that's kind of just something that I left in the default Sanity Studio. Feel free to use that if you want to. Just kind of general metadata for the page. But what we really want to go through is this links page. So links page, we have links profile image, the alt text for the profile image, which I'm actually going to show how to pass that through. The name, your Facebook URL, Twitter URL, Instagram, YouTube, GitHub. You could add more if you wanted to. You could also really get fancy with this and have these be conditional fields, which that's actually something that they recently launched, where you could turn something on or set a certain setting and it will dynamically ask for certain fields depending on those conditions. All right, so feel free to check that out. We went with a pretty straightforward schema here though, because these links pages are pretty straightforward, right? So Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all of that's on there. And then the way the links list works, that's the links buttons, which I could rename these things or you can rename them to whatever makes sense to you. Links page buttons. These are buttons that you can dynamically create. So you could have specific ones on your page. Maybe you have a couple that you go back to adding, but maybe you don't have them on there all the time. This is kind of why I've structured it that way. So you have Hire Me, My Blog. Those are just the two that I created. And if you click on one of those, there is a link text and link URL option for both of those. Something kind of cool that you could add to this would be maybe an emoji. Do an emoji picker and it adds those emojis to the links list or link buttons. You could do an image. You could do style options on here too. You could get really creative with these buttons and styling them the way that you want to. That's why I kind of just got the base structure of things set up for you. And then at the bottom of the links page, that's where this list comes in. So if I remove one of these, then it would no longer be visible on the links page, but it still exists in that links page button list. So it's available for me to add later. So let's just go ahead and remove it. Let's say I want to add that back, and maybe I want to put hire me at the top of the links page for now. So you add it, close that dialog, and then you can just reorder that to the top of the list and publish our changes. So you can sort of see how this page will look based off of the content. We're going to go back. We'll close out the Sanity Studio. You could leave it running if you wanted to and just add another terminal, but I'm just going to close it. And let's open a terminal at the Astro folder. I'm going to do npm install on that. And you can kind of see I'm just going step by step through the README here. And npm start to run that. Perfect. And localhost 3000 on that one, not the 333. And this is it. So it's pretty sweet. You have the image, you have the social media links matched to specific icons for those. You could change the icons super easily, swap out the SVGs to your own style, or you could hook that up to Sanity and have different styles on command to just switch to. You have the hire me, my blog, all of that right there. What's cool is you can actually see that this is connected to Sanity. So if we go back, I probably shouldn't have closed that out. Let's just get it running again real quick. So we have hire me and my blog. And then if you hover over these, I know my face is in the way there. If you hover over these, you can see that the link down there in the bottom left corner is matched to what's in Sanity. So if I were to change my name, it should be running now. Perfect. If I were to change my name in the links page, and Bob, publish that, refresh, there you go. It changes to Jim Bob. There you go. Super fast, super easy to manage this stuff. I'll swap that back to me, publish. This is running in Astro. This is actually generated as a static file. This isn't dynamically updated in this case. So I have to refresh the page or let it do its hot refresh when it recognizes the change. But yeah, that will get the freshest data when you run the build. Feel free to kind of use this as a template for however you want to set it up in Gatsby, or set it up in just a Next project maybe, or Nuxt, really whatever front end you want to use. There's a lot of Sanity clients out there. This one is using that GraphQL API, like I said. And let's just take a look at under the hood of the Astro page, how that works. So we're Astro project source directory pages, and then index.astro. Astro has a pretty sweet option to run a fetch command on the top level of your file. And then I just have a helper function that does a Sanity GraphQL query with whatever I pass it. So feel free to look at kind of how that works in the helpers file. And then the API actually is in the lib folder. And if we go to libapi.js, you can see that this is the GraphQL query to get that data. So if you've made changes to the schema, that's where you would want to go to update the query. And always remember with Sanity, if you make changes to the schema, you'll want to deploy those changes to the GraphQL API. So you'll want to run npm run GraphQL deploy again. Just kind of a reminder there. And the way this works is it's running that fetch. It gets the data back from that fetch to Sanity. And we're just passing the data in, pretty similar to what you'd probably see in something like Gatsby or Next with GraphQL. And you can just map over all that data. And remember I said that the alt link or the alt text, honestly, if I'm being honest, I forgot to add it here, but we can use it as a demo. So data.links page profile image alt. And what's really cool, so this is great demo. If we go to the GraphQL URL, we can run some queries on that. And we can actually take our API folder here, copy this query, run the query, and you'll see that we're getting the data right there. So really cool that Sanity just gives you this playground to run those queries off. What we want though is the alt text. So on this profile image, there should be an alt. And there we go. So we have the alt text. So we'll want to update our query right there with the alt right there. And then we'll go here, data.links page profile image dot alt. And if we go back to, we'll close that out, our profile image, let's go ahead and inspect it. Profile photo of Jaden Irwin. There you go. So it's passing in the alt text from that query. So pretty cool. I might update some styles on this on mobile a little bit too, maybe add a hover animation to the buttons. But remember, this is all open source. So if you want to change the style of something, definitely just go ahead and do that. Change the style, make it look how you want it to look, and it is your links page. What's really cool about all this is it is all open source and you have the customization, but you can also put it on your own domain. So you're actually sending traffic to your website and your URL rather than sending it somewhere else like bio.link and their URL. So we're not quite done. That's how Astro works. The styles are in there in that Astro file. Feel free to check that out. What I wanted to show you though is that lit component. And we were talking about web components. So let's go ahead and kill the Studio. We don't really have to do anything with that right now. We'll kill Astro's kernel. Let's go back up. So cd ... and we'll change into the lit component. Let's run npm install real quick and npm start. Made it the same commands as Astro, so it's easy to remember. And there we go. Close out some things here. And this one looks a little bit different. I changed a couple of the styles. I'll probably match those up to the other one. But yeah, we have that. And then we could go ahead and go into the lit component, sanity links page.ts. And let's add the alt text to this one too. So alt, and we'll go to our image, alt equals, they do a $, your props, page data, page profile image dot alt. And then that one, this is completely self-contained too. So this is kind of what's cool about the web component. Astro is also really sweet because it is static. It is going to be less JavaScript or no JavaScript for the end user. But this one is a web component, so it is using JavaScript to run the query when the page loads or when the component loads. And we should see, let's just do that inspect real quick on the image again. Alt equals profile photo of Jaden Irwin. Cool. Same thing, we have the links on those and then a little hover animation on those buttons too. And hire me, my blog are right there. Again, you can change the order, you can change the text, the URLs for these, change the styles too. So yeah, there is the web component running this all on page. The way that works, I'll kind of explain that real quick, is you have your query inside of the file right at the top. That's just a const. And that is something that you consume. Styles are at the top of the page too. I can go ahead and collapse those. That is consumed right here, links page. So similar to the Astro component, Sanity GraphQL query, that is the query that it's told to make on the Sanity API. And that is basically it. There's our Sanity GraphQL query. So feel free to pick this apart. You can fork it, play around with it. I just thought it was pretty cool of an idea to take Sanity and truly an API for your content and use it in a creative way rather than, the typical marketing site. This could easily just be hooked onto another page on your marketing site, and now you're sending traffic to your website, not someone else's. So let me know if you have questions in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. Hopefully you found this interesting and useful. Yeah, hope you guys have a good one. Peace.